tackles looks as if they're in the backfield and nothing was called. I watched the game yesterday with the Kansas City Chiefs. Their tackles are basically in the backfield and not once were they called. So to me, it's like, what are y'all doing? Y'all show no consistency whatsoever. The pass interference that they call on Brownlee against Jefferson in the first quarter. The tackle was basically in the backfield and they didn't call anything. So to me, it's like, what are y'all doing? And then the very next play, the tackle on the other side was basically in the backfield. So it's like, what are y'all calling? How are y'all looking at this? What deem, a guy to be an illegal formation and what deems it not to be an illegal formation? Because it seems like y'all are really paying attention to the Titans tackles and y'all are glancing over the other tackles that are playing on the other team. So that's what it was, Willie. A few times, yes, but you got to warn the guy. And they said they warned him, but listen, I guess you didn't do enough warning because maybe you didn't say anything to the Vikings guys because they were just as egregious as the Titans were as far as illegal formations. I don't know why they were so hell bent on making the call one way and not the other.
615-737-1025 will continue to take your thoughts on Will Levis and the Titans, who lose 23-13 to the Minnesota Vikings yesterday, their record falling to 2-8. If you have thoughts on Will Levis, get them in now. 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063, The Game.
All right, let's talk Lee Company. Lee Company can be reached at 615-567-1000 or go to leecompany.com. The Predators with a good win last night in Vancouver. If you didn't stay up late, they had the offensive output that they were looking for. And Lee Company is a big sponsor of our radio coverage, which went late into the night. And raise your hand if you heard Philip Forsberg on with Max and Hal after the game. That meant you really are a diehard, but you were rewarded with some good stuff last night. Lee Company's there for every Predator game. And when you go to Smashville Saturday night and the Winnipeg Jets come into town, you'll see the Lee Company display proudly all around Smashville. Let's see if the Predators can get it going here. Lee Company also has got you covered in your home. It's so important to make sure that your heating and cooling systems are always running properly. That's why they give you the annual checkups with their home maintenance plan. They'll check your plumbing and electric as well. And it's a great program that we use in our household and have for a long, long time. So make sure that you start that relationship with Lee Company. Just go to leecompany.com or give them a call, 615-567-1000. Lee Company, in service in our listening area since 1944.
Does this loss feel different for you coming out of a game where you feel like you played pretty well compared to some of the
I don't know. I mean, honestly, like I feel like last week in terms of just how I threw the ball, I was more accurate and I made some better decisions here and there. But I was a little frustrated with a couple of the balls that I'm going to be watching on tape. But I just all I want to do is win, man. Like there's nothing else matters. And it's been frustrating. It's been tough. But I mean, I haven't won a game this year. Like I'm chasing that feeling, and I'm doing everything I can to get there.
That was Will Levis after the game yesterday, and I was struck by that portion of his news conference because I believe he does get credit for the win at Miami because he was the starting quarterback, but we know that Mason Rudolph led the Titans to that win. So it has been nearly a calendar year since Will Levis won a game. If you want to consider, if you don't count the game that I just described, it was the game in Miami last year, the comeback, which was on December 11th, 2023. So it's been nearly a calendar year since Will Levis won a game, and you can tell how much it's weighing on him. You know, criticize Will Levis all you want, and he absolutely deserves the criticism that he has taken this season. But clearly, the guy wants to win, and it's certainly weighing on him. Cam is on our phone line, driven by Wilson County Hyundai.com. Cam, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Hey guys, I had two thoughts here. Talking about the offense, thinking about the offensive line. Is it just me, or does it feel like the defensive line and the DNs, they're all getting bigger, faster, stronger, and the offensive line has they can't mess up at all. I mean, a wide receiver drops a pass and they get a slap on the hand, but if you flinch on the line, you have right tackle problems. So my issue is why does the NFL continue to punish the offensive line when they're an inch back on the line? I feel like that's something that could change. First of all, second of all, is there a possibility in any way? This is, I don't know how the offensive line works that well, but when Lloyd Cushenberry comes back, if he takes over center and Dylan Radins goes to right tackle and Brunskill goes to right guard, is that even possible? All right, thanks guys.
Thank you.
Thanks,
anything is possible if the Titans decide to go down that route. Listen, they have enormous problems at the right tackle position. Honestly, and I'm going to say this, I wouldn't let Nicholas Petit-Frere back on the field. I would not let him back on the field. Matter of fact, I would deactivate him for every game moving forward. He just doesn't have it in him, man. And there's no need to try to sit here and sugarcoat it and hope that he gets better. And, he has the potential. I know a lot of guys that had potential in this game and it never materialized into anything. And now, they find themselves not playing anymore. This guy, frankly, cannot play in this league. I am going to say that. He cannot play in this league. He's not built for this league. He was built for college, and that was it. That's when his paper should have expired at the college level, because he cannot, and I repeat, he cannot. He hasn't shown that he can play in this. He's not even a backup. That's how bad it is with him. It's a disgrace. I would not put him back on the field for no reason. I don't care if we didn't have a right tackle. I would not put him back on the field. He doesn't have it in him, and you keep throwing him out there, and he keeps proving to you. He's basically spitting in your face each time you send him back out there. The kid cannot play. Please, Rand Carthon, do not put him back out there.
I would say that at this point, his confidence is so low. Let me.
Man,
just
it ain't even about
confidence,
Willie. The kid just can't play, man.
But as a rookie in the league, he was playing at a much better level than he is now. So that was the same guy. I think we also would have said that Dylan Radins was a total waste of time for about a 2-year period, and now he's doing what he's doing after an ACL. So I don't think you just throw him away. I do think he's a project that you put on the shelf. You're certainly trying. He's not a starter, but I think you keep him around and you hope that things get better down the road. And it's all connected to the Levis part, right? Because if you've got a certain budget for your salary cap to go address needs, and that's a huge need, right tackle. Or, maybe it's a first-round pick for the right tackle. But either way, right, if you're trying to replace Levis, that's going to be a high round pick, or that's going to be a big chunk as we were talking about with a Sam Darnold or a Fields, if that's who you wanted to go after, that's going to take up a huge portion of the salary cap funds that you have. So that's why the evaluation of Levis is so huge, and it's all connected.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I understand what you're saying, Willie, and I understand about the kid's rookie season. But since that rookie season, he has fallen off a cliff.
Oh,
and
it's
he's not
it's
getting
bad.
back.
It's hard to watch.
He's
It's
not
hard to
even
watch.
getting back. He's not even getting back on the stairwell to even climb back up to see if he can do it again.
No,
It's
he's sinking
bad.
further. He's sinking further, right? He's lost right now. But let me ask you guys this about the guy, what the caller brought up about lining up. D-Mace, when you are lining up and you know you're supposed to be off the line or on the line, you can signal to the ref and say, "Am I okay?" Why can't the tackle do that? You know, why can't we come up with a better system where it's not, hey, let's see if guess if I'm on the line of scrimmage or not. I mean, we know where the tackle wants to line up, right? I mean, can he not get the okay from the official or something? Can we come up with something where he doesn't have to worry about it, right? There's a designated spot or something.
Yeah, and I get that part, but I don't think it's uniform across the league. I don't, because just watch the Kansas City game.
It should be simple to fix, right?
Yeah, watch the Kansas City game and look at Kansas City's tackles, and look how far they are back, but they don't call it. Look how far the Minnesota Vikings tackles were back on some of those plays, but they didn't call it. It's like y'all pick and choose when y'all gonna make these calls. Like, listen, I understand why tackles do it, because it sort of it's like sort of the pitcher, when the mound is higher or whatnot, then the advantage goes to who? The pitcher. So I think they had to change a few things. The advantage goes to the rush in when the tackle has to sit basically level with the center and level with the guard.
Yeah.
The advantage goes to the defensive end when that happens. So there needs to be a reworking of all of this, because it's not uniform. It's not. You can put on 3 different games and watch 3 different tackles, and they all look different, but they're not calling them. One game they don't call them at all. Then another game they call them 2 or 3 times.
How crazy would this be, Adam? I'm sure you guys have seen a soccer game where, if there's a free kick, they put the ball down, and then the guy takes some sort of spray paint, the referee, and marks the line where the defenders can line up the wall, right? You guys know what I'm talking about? And the whatever he's spraying on there disappears after a while. Do we need to do that for the linemen? Like, here's the line of where you have to line up. You got to touch this line if you're the tackle. If you're behind it, it's a penalty. As long as you're touching the line, you're okay. I don't know. I mean, that would be tedious to do every play, but I feel like there's a way to do it, or just give the nod. Am I okay lining up right here? Something to allow the tackles to know what the rule is, because you're right, D-Mace. They will push it, right? The tackle will say, let's see if I can line up a little further back, and see if he won't call it. And obviously that has been a topic of discussion.
I remember at the beginning of the season, illegal formation was a point of emphasis.
Yes,
There's always one of these things every year.
Yes.
That first game against the Chiefs, with the Chiefs and the Ravens, I feel like there were 3 illegal formation penalties on the first 2 drives.
Yeah.
And over the course of the season, that crackdown, they're not as hard. It seems like they're not as hard on it. They're hard on it at first, and then it sort of recedes. But yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I don't know what the league can do or what the players can do other than knowing where to line up. It seems simple, right? If you're an offensive lineman, you should know where you need to line up.
Well, it's I think the way it's described is the tackle, I think either his foot or his helmet needs to be aligned with the waist of the center. So when you're looking, everybody should be basically where the waist of the center, not exactly on the head of the center, but the waist and going across. So it starts with the guard, and then what typically happens is the tackle lines up on the guard. So those 2 guys need to start really talking to make sure that, okay, I'm on the ball, you make sure you're as close as possible to me as far as what you line up, because if the guard lines up a little bit off, then it's going to throw the tackle off because he's only lining up where the
Right.
guard is, because the guard is supposed to be on the ball. So maybe that's something that the Tennessee Titans really need to look at. But these egregious illegal formation calls, man, come on, seriously.
615-737-1025. Willie, I know you need to leave us to start your long journey back to Nashville. Safe travels. We look forward to having you back in studio tomorrow.
Oh, yes. Looking forward to it. I'll be back.
You just had to go with that one. I'll be back.
Very Schwarzeneggerian. I don't know how you
Yeah.
would something that Arnold Schwarzenegger would say. 615-737-1025. We'll continue to take your thoughts and calls and texts on the Titans. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063. The Game.
Oh, man.
Schwarzeneggerian. I don't want to say something that sounds like I'm saying something.
Exactly.
All right. Stop letting high interest debt weigh you down. Pay it off. Thanks to Loan Pronto's new rapid equity loan, they can get it even quicker to you. That cash that you need to pay off the bills and put yourself in a better financial position for 2025. Loan Pronto's rapid equity loan uses AI-driven tech to get you approved for cash out in as little as 1 day. So if you're a homeowner and you need cash out of your home's equity, you can do it. For example, they have a client that got $100,000 approved in under 24 hours. The client took that cash, wiped out the debt, launched a home improvement project, and is saving over $1,000 a month because of the better rate that they're getting. So instant approvals, low fixed rates, fast transfers. Call Loan Pronto now and see how much you can qualify for. At this time next week, you could be credit card debt free. 615-499-5780 or loanpronto.com. That's 615-499-5780 or loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 166-1781 on approved credit, NMLSconsumeraccess.org.
D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Derek Mason and Adam Vingan here with you. Willie Donick beginning his long journey back from Vancouver. He'll rejoin us in studio tomorrow. Looking forward to having Willie back with us. If you're wondering why, it's because the Predators' final game Wednesday of this road trip against the Seattle Kraken is a nationally televised game on TNT. So Willie will not be calling that game. So he gets to come home early. I do have one programming note for all of you. The SEC has set the start time for Tennessee at Vanderbilt coming up on November 30th. That game will start at 11 a.m. Tennessee at Vanderbilt on November 30th will start at 11 a.m. on West End. But we have lots of calls to get to. Our friend Eric is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Eric, thank you for waiting. Please go ahead. Eric.
Hello?
Hey, Eric. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing just fine. But, guys, I was going to say, the reason I didn't call in for D. Mason on Friday, I actually was at a Kiwanis Club luncheon where George Plaster was the moderator and the featured speaker was Clark Lee of Vanderbilt. So that's why I didn't call in Friday.
We
Hey,
forgive
guys.
you. We
Yes.
forgive
Okay.
you.
Yeah, hey, guys, I was also going to say this. One of the funny things yesterday I kind of thought was humorous was yesterday before the start of the second half, they had on the Jumbotron who's going to be the next player to score a touchdown. And the guy said, Tony Pollard. I said, man, he ought to say Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. And, of course, he scored the next touchdown in the second half. So I'm already saying, I was saying, the next home game, when they have that on the Jumbotron, either if he's not up there, say other, or Nick Westbrook-Ikhine should be part of that equation now, the way he's been playing lately. So that's what I would go with. But anyway, guys, as far as the officiating, Derek, I'm like you, and I called in last week and said the same thing. All you ask for is consistency. It is just so overwhelmingly ridiculous. I mean, and everybody talks about home cooking. We didn't get no home cooking yesterday. It was more like, to me, home rooking, or in this case, home tooking, because we got taken yesterday with all the just horrendous calls yesterday. It's just, even the Vancouver fans over there, some of them was kind of stoic because I think they know we got just hosed. It's just ridiculous that you have just it's that bad. And like you, all I ask for is consistency. And there were fans, and again, I don't buy in where the fix is in or anything like that. But that's what people are saying, whether it's predetermined or not, that they're going to make this many calls or whatever against some teams, where the good teams don't get the calls, the bad teams, have calls called against them. It's just so frustrating when you have that happen. And I'm like everybody else, just consistency. I mean, 9 penalties to 1 in the first half, 13 to 3. I mean, that's just insane. And Coach Mack, I was listening to the game yesterday on the radio at the stadium. He definitely was going off about officiating. And he, of course, had to be careful. He said he'd probably lose his job. But guys, it's just ridiculous. Now get off and let you get some other callers. Y'all take care. We'll talk again soon.
Thanks, Eric. And Derek, we haven't even discussed the Mike Brown penalty
No.
in the end zone.
No.
I imagine you took quite a few shots like that in your career.
Yes.
But the explanation, because I do give the NFL credit for making officials available to reporters after games. Not every league does that. And although sometimes the responses from the officials are unsatisfactory, at least you get to hear from them.
Mhm.
So Clete Blakeman, who was the referee for the game yesterday, was asked about that unnecessary roughness penalty on Mike Brown. And he said, quote, "We had 2 officials call it. Essentially, the defensive player launched into the receiver, who was considered a defenseless player, and there was helmet contact to the chest and neck area." And now there's further explanation. But I read it and I didn't come away thinking, "Oh, now I get it. That makes sense."
I mean, they're covering their rear ends, and I get why. To me, it was a bad call. Again, are you supposed to? And he didn't hit him, in the helmet. He hit him in the chest, and then the explanation. Well, the helmet did hit the face mask or something like that. The helmet is going to hit when you lead with your shoulder. Your helmet's going to hit somewhere. I think what it was a bang bang play, and they heard the loud sound. and they saw the guy that went down and they threw a flag. That's just what it was. It was a reaction to a sound and not necessarily them seeing it. Those should be ones you can go back and you can challenge as a head coach, because I don't think that play, albeit it was a physical play, it wasn't a play that I with defenseless receiver. All receivers are defenseless when they're trying to catch the football. That makes no damn sense to me. It doesn't. So you got to catch the ball, get 2 feet down, pull it in, make sure you got it. Then I can hit you. Sometimes they call it, sometimes they don't. That's a situation where you don't call it. You just don't. You called it more so because of how it sounded rather than what it actually was, or how it looked rather than what it actually was. I think it was just a bad call. Again, these are one of these times where Callahan needs to stand on his in the pulpit or on the stoop and scream loud about how egregious that call was, because it changed the complexity of the game. The very next play, what did they do? They scored. So that was 4th down, I believe, on that play to the receiver. Now, because of you've interjected yourself into the game where you didn't have to. It was a good, hard, solid, but legal hit. And just because it made a lot of noise, you want to throw the flag. That stuff like that, I just don't get. It baffles me. It really does. The defensive players are not at an advantage whatsoever. They're at a disadvantage on plays like that. So much so that guys, I see why guys, when you see plays in the middle of the field, it's like guys don't hit them because they don't want to get, flagged for a penalty. Even if it's a clean hit, if it sounds bad, they're going to throw the penalty. And that's what they do.
James is on our phone line, driven by Wilson County Hyundai.com. James, thank you for waiting. Please go ahead.
Hey, thanks for taking my call, guys. I was at the game yesterday with my wife, and speaking on what D-Mace was saying, I do agree that that call should not have been called. The defenseless receiver rule, I don't particularly agree with, because it's by judgment cases, on my opinion. Also, it just seemed like every time the Titans made a play, whether it be a 3rd down stop or, for example, Calvin Ridley's touchdown, it just seemed like all of it was taken away. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, James. Steven is on our phone line, driven by Wilson County Hyundai.com. Steven, thank you for waiting. Please go ahead.
Hello, man. I just want to give y'all a little bit more of the in-depthness of being a PSL holder for this length of time and having this happen.
Sure.
The night before, we're cooking all of our red beans and rice. The next morning, we're going to tailgate. We're out there, 20 of us for 25 years, right? We're ready to go. We want to be this whole loyal fan base. And then when we get there, I'll also tell you, so it's like an Andy Griffith rerun. I even told the Viking fans that are sitting around us, I said, the next thing we're going to do, because it's a military salute, and I'm not trying to be, difficult here, but for 25 years, I already told them, I said, hey, in 3 minutes, we're going to give away a wheelchair. In 3 minutes after that, we're going to have the pinnacle thing up here. You're going to see 1,000 people in the section all screaming, it's under number 2, like the peanut game, as if it matters. And it's like a rerun so many times over and over again. By the time the game's even kicked off, I can't get the 4 people standing in front of me to sit down. If I was at home watching the game for free, are there 4 people standing right in front of my couch where I can't see? The ushers won't do anything about that. And then you throw in on top of a $165 ticket, you're going to throw in the refs like that, as if the fans are going to eat this stuff whether they like it or not. I can stay home and watch this stuff for free. And then you throw in the new stadium with all the new ticket prices and everything else. I personally am not that frustrated. I've been doing this for 25 years, but I'm 61 now. I could kind of semi-care less. And all the other fans and all our tailgaters are like, they're almost in that take it or leave it mode. So I don't know how much more of this loyal legion they're talking about when they talk about, well, there's so many Viking fans here. Yeah, I can sell my tickets and only go to 2 or 3 games and still get, and I'm not saying break even, but get fairly close.
Stephen, I'm
But I'm
curious
just
for
saying
your
the
opinion on something. So you said you've been
Yeah.
you've been a season ticket holder for 25 years.
every year.
Where did
Haven't-
yesterday's Vikings fan takeover rank in terms of the most visiting fans at Nissan Stadium for a Titans home game?
It wasn't egregious. Like it's happened with the Eagles. It's happened with the Chiefs, some of those types of teams. So I enjoyed the stadium being full either way. We all Thanksgiving weekend, we're all going to be out of town, right? If the Titans are playing, it's not because we're not loyal. We might as well give the tickets to somebody. Halloween, we got our kids trick or treating. If you look at just the way people are, that no one can go to every game every weekend all the time. So it's okay to have visiting people. Most of them are pretty decent. But when the Patriot fan last weekend was sitting next to me and he pays $55 for his ticket to come in and sit down in the lower bowl, 14 rows from the field, and I paid $165 for that ticket 6 months ago because I'm quote unquote, a loyal fan. Look at all the stadiums. If you really want to look at it, every stadium in America yesterday, you could have bought tickets for the game cheaper than what the PSL holder paid for them 6 months ago. I don't care who it is. The Dolphins, if you're in Miami, you can go to a Miami Dolphins game for half price. Even the Steelers, look at the Steelers, as good as they are, playing the Ravens. You can buy those tickets cheaper the day before the day of the game. So I don't get this whole you've got to pay to do all. I can go to any Titans game I want to next year. Y'all already know this, for half of what they're going to try to charge me in April.
Stephen, thank you for the call. I do
Yep.
want to get into something that Stephen mentioned. I saw it tweeted multiple times yesterday, and we'll do this on the other side. I saw it tweeted multiple times yesterday from people who would know. I saw Paul Kaharski tweet about it. I saw John Glennon tweet about it. People who have covered the Titans for a long time talking about the sheer amount of Vikings fans who were in the stadium yesterday. And I'm curious about that from one perspective, and we'll discuss that next. 615-737-1025. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063, The Game.
Happy Monday. This is Derek Mason. You heard me tell you about Dr. Lodge and his staff over at Cool Springs MD for some time. If you set out to lose weight, chances are it's not your first time setting a resolution to shed some extra pounds, only to face disappointment. But at Cool Springs MD, Dr. Lodge and his team understands the frustration of this cycle, and that is why they offer a different approach to weight loss. Their comprehensive weight loss program is led by Dr. Jeffrey Lodge and addresses the root cause of weight gain with tailored nutrition, exercise, blood test supplements, and more. They will customize a program specific to you and no one else. So connect with Dr. Lodge at CoolSpringsMD.com today to schedule your appointment for a personalized weight loss plan just for you. That's Cool Springs MD, where your weight loss journey becomes a success story.
D-Mace, Finnegan, and Donick, 1025, 1063 The Game. Tennessee Titans head coach Brian Callahan will address reporters around 12:45, I believe, and we will take you there live when he does. We will also have Teron Davenport, ESPN's NFL Nation Titans reporter. He will join us following the news conference to give his thoughts on what Brian Callahan had to say, as well as the game yesterday, another loss for the Tennessee Titans. So our previous caller touched on something I wanted to talk about with you, Derek. So I saw a tweet from Paul Kaharski yesterday before the game. He said, quote, "This game has a chance to be an all-time fan infiltration game, and that's saying something for Nissan Stadium. Vikings people in purple everywhere." And I also saw John Glennon of the Nashville Post, who's been around this market for a long time, say something similar about the purple and gold representation inside Nissan Stadium yesterday. And I understand for a number of reasons. One, we all know people like to come to Nashville, right? It's a great place to live. It's a great place to visit. We all know that. Also, the Minnesota Vikings don't come to Nissan Stadium very often. I can't recall, was it every 8 years? It would be something along those lines. I don't remember the last time they played here, but it's been a while, and it will be a while until they're back. So if you're looking to make a trip to see your favorite team play on the road, we know this, whether you're a fan of the Titans, a fan of the Predators, you will see, fans of Vanderbilt, you will see opposing fans in the stadium because people love to come to Nashville. But what I was wondering yesterday, Derek, was we talk so much about what ownership thinks of all of this, what ownership thinks about the situation the Titans are in. And it got me thinking, one thing that I feel like can get an owner's attention, perhaps more than anything else. It has to hit them in the pocketbook, obviously. But one thing that can get their attention is seeing their home stadium overrun by opposing fans. Now, I wasn't at the game yesterday. If you were at the game yesterday and you want to give your perspective, 615-737-1025. Joey from Bellevue texted in and said, "I watched it on TV and I could tell it seemed like a Vikings home game." You want your fans in the building. But as the caller said, when your team isn't doing well, you have other obligations. You'll sell your tickets. You'll make some money on your season ticket deposit. I wonder what Amy Adams Strunk saw seeing her team's home stadium look like an extension of the Vikings home stadium at the game yesterday.
Well, she should have expected it because the team is not doing well. And she's been around this game long enough to know that 1 year of it, fan base will give you a pass and they'll show up. When you start to talk 2-3 years, that's when they're not giving you a pass. That's when they're going to show you their frustrations by not showing up to the game. So one, I would tend to think she should have known this was going to be the case. But even knowing that will be the case, you have to be disappointed in a sense too, because you look over, your stadium on game day and you see overwhelmingly too many opposing teams' fans. So much so that at times it probably sounded like a away game as opposed to a home game. But listen, they already got their money. And for Viking fans, there were no seats. They even bought them on a secondary market, which means they already got their money. So I'm sure she can't be upset in regards to the bottom line. The bottom line is you want the money, right? So they got the money, but the optics of it isn't good when your team walks out and sees nothing but or see a purple. And it's made to feel sometimes like as if it's a away game rather than a home game. But listen, they can't blame anyone but themselves. You start putting a better product on the field, then the fans will show up. I'm not going to tell the fans they shouldn't go to games. They're paying too much money. The caller even said it, paying too much money to be going to games when you're not winning. So you start winning and they'll start showing up again. You're going to have your diehards that's just going to go no matter what. Like a good buddy of mine. He's a diehard. He and his daughter, stopped by JBJ's yesterday and then went over to the game, and they go to the games every week. But everybody's not like them. People will, just like the caller said, I sell my tickets to try to recoup some money, rather than to go see a poor product on the field. And right now, that's what the Titans are. Whether they like to hear this or not, it's a poor product right now on the field. So the fans are going to show their frustrations by not coming.
Let's see. Josh on our text line says there was more purple than a Barney convention in the 90s. That takes me back.
Oh, man.
I was a Barney kid growing up.
I wasn't, well, Barney wasn't out when I was growing up.
Yeah.
But
You were
my
too old.
kids,
You were too old for
yeah,
Barney.
my kids did watch Barney for a bit. So there you go.
I remember I had a Barney Carvel ice cream cake when I was in preschool. Those were the days, man. Shout out Carvel ice cream cake.
Man.
Austin on our text line says, I've been a PSL holder for a decade, never missed a game. I've never seen that many opposing fans. It's embarrassing. It was an away game. Love that the Titans are sending out surveys asking if fans know how to sell their tickets. Multiple questions. What an absolute joke. Robert says, honestly, I didn't realize that it was a home game until after halftime. So, by the way, I was correct. It had been 8 years since the Vikings had been to Nissan Stadium, 2016. So Vikings are good. Their fans want to travel. Great place to be. Beautiful day in Nashville yesterday.
Yes, it was.
It all works out for a Vikings takeover at Nissan Stadium. But, I wonder if this is, it's one of those things that I wonder, like if you are a member of Titans ownership, you're a member of that front office, and you see your home stadium invaded by opposing fans, I highly doubt that Amy Adams Strunk saw that and said, well, now I'm convinced things aren't working out. But but like, that's a visual.
Yes.
That's easy for all of us to see.
It's the optics of it.
It absolutely. One texter said you could hear the skull chants through the TV broadcast. I did hear those on the TV broadcast. Zach is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Zach, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Hey, what's going on, guys?
What's going on, Zach?
Not much. So, yeah, I just was listening to the topic, and it was kind of funny. So I actually work for the Titans. I do fan services over there, so I'm at every home game. So yesterday was definitely a new one for me working there where, yeah, there was a lot of Vikings fans there. It was a lot of purple. What you guys were just talking about, the text are saying that you could hear the skull chants. It definitely felt like an away game, and especially when you see Will Levis getting sacked and the place erupts in cheers, it was a different kind of environment for sure.
Thanks for calling, Zach. Yeah, I can only imagine what it was like for people who, as some of our callers have and texters have said, who spend a ton of money.
Yes.
To buy those tickets, to have access to those tickets, and visiting fans can just buy them off the secondary market. Or look, I am not one of those people that says you can't sell your tickets to an opposing fan. You got to make money, man.
Yeah.
Like if that's,
especially if your team isn't doing well.
Right.
And it's not like, again, it's not like this is the first year of the Titans not doing well. No, this stretches back to last year and the year before that, toward the latter part. So listen, if you want your fans to not sell their tickets, then put a better product on the field. That's basically that is the medicine that will cure your ailment. Is if you start winning football games, then they will start coming. They will not sell their tickets.
We have a couple of texters about Will Levis. If we want to get back on the Will Levis topic, we spoke about Will Levis for much of the first hour. And Derek, I think a lot of people are in agreement with your position, which is he's taken some small steps these past few games, but it has to be more than just 2 games. And he actually needs to win some games on top of playing better in order for anyone to be convinced otherwise about Will Levis's future as an NFL quarterback. One texter says, Will Levis is an athlete. I can tell he's a ball player. He doesn't have talent around him other than Calvin Ridley. Also, the OC is terrible. I was at the game yesterday predicting the offensive play calls. By the way, Brian Callahan
Yeah, it's
calling
the
plays,
offensive coordinator.
not the offensive coordinator. They need to call plays to Levis's strengths and not worry about his confidence. If it's to his strengths, then the confidence will come to him.
Okay, I want people to understand this because when people either call in or text in, or I'm talking to somebody, your buddies or whatnot, it don't matter, and they say, "Well, I predicted they were going to do that." Well, you only have two choices. Either they're going to run the football or they're going to throw the football. Those are basically the two choices. So you got a 50-50 shot at figuring out what they're going to do. It's just like a multiple choice test when you only have A and B. You're going to figure it out, okay? You're going to get half of the questions wrong and half of the questions right, okay? That's just the way it is. So when people say they're predictable, I knew what they were going to call. No, you didn't. You didn't know what they were going to call, because if you knew what they were going to call, you would have designed the play. You would have told the person next to you, "Hey, listen, they're going to line up at our right. They're going to be trips to this side. They're going to fake it to him, roll out, and they're going to throw it to that guy." That's predicting the play, not, "Oh, I bet you're going to run right here." I can do that all day, every day. Hell, I have done it. But does that mean I believe they're predictable? Some points of the game is going to be run. Some points of the game is going to be pass. You can predict that just by saying run or pass. It don't matter. But to actually predict the play, you got to tell me what they're going to do. Don't just tell me they're going to run or throw. Tell me the design of the play. That's predicting a play. That's being predictable, knowing the design of the play. Not to say, because listen, defenses, they even halfway figure it out. They know half the time whether I'm running or throwing the football, but they don't know the exact play. It's different to know the exact play. There's a difference between knowing they're going to throw the football and knowing they're going to throw the football and what the route combination and everything is going to be. You haven't figured that out yet. So when you say that, just say you predicted that they would either run or throw the football. You didn't actually predict what pass play it would be.
We have one texter who said, as a Vikings fan here in Tennessee, I've seen my team on the road quite a bit. Never seen so many for a road game, even in nice cities like Miami and Arizona.
Well, Nashville's it's a destination city. It's a place people want to come and spend the weekend. I'm not sure if many people are. Well, let me not say that. People have been to Miami.
Yes.
They know what the Miami life is about. A lot of people try to get away from that. They want to come somewhere where they can
This is family.
enjoy,
This is for families.
families enjoy themselves and have a good time, but still able to relax. So they come to Nashville because it's damn sure not cheap anymore. So
I mean, I've seen some not so family friendly things on
oh
Broadway.
yeah,
of course.
You go on Broadway, yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah, you'll see more than just family friendly things on Broadway, but it's just a destination spot for people to come, and a lot of times it's an easy flight. You can get there on one plane. You don't have to take connecting flights. So people tend to come to Nashville and enjoy themselves, and why not enjoy yourself while your team is actually playing here?
Steve is on our phone line, driven by Wilson County Hyundai.com. Steve, quickly, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Hey guys, my name's Steve. I just was calling about the PSL, the guys that are holding PSLs and going to the games and such. And I just want to say that the Titans have offered a 22nd Element member. So if you go to all the games, you basically get benefits. But the problem is you cannot sell your ticket if you do that. You can donate your tickets, but you can't sell them. So I'm not sure if that makes a difference, but there's a lot of guys out there that can't even sell their ticket if they wanted to.
Oh wow! I wonder what those.
Thank you for the call, Steve.
Yeah, we wish we had kept them on to see what some of those benefits were, but I mean they have to be worth it to keep it. I would say the benefits has to be worth it, right, Adam? I mean, if you're telling me that I cannot sell my ticket, I can only donate my ticket, then the benefits of me keeping it has to be what are you giving me? So I'm sure it's
Steve, if you're listening and you want to text us what those benefits are, 615-737-1025. As I was watching the game yesterday and saw how clearly purple it was in the stands yesterday, it just got me thinking what ownership thinks of that site. Because as I said, there are bigger problems with this organization on the field than what's going on in the stands. But it's an easy indicator of how things are going when your home stadium effectively becomes the other team's satellite campus, so to speak. So that's just something that I was curious about. 615-737-1025. We'll continue the conversation, and Brian Callahan is scheduled to address reporters shortly. We will bring that to you live. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025, 1063, The Game. D-Mays Thinking and Donick 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Willie Donick will be back in studio tomorrow as he travels back today from Vancouver. We've touched on this a little bit today, Derek, but we haven't really gotten into it too deeply yet. And we will continue this conversation even after we hear from Brian Callahan, and we're awaiting Brian Callahan's Monday news conference. That offensive line, man. Whoo-wee! That's it. It's I can't even think. I feel like I can't even come up with an adjective that would adequately describe the stinkiness of the Titans offensive line. I think if I could come up with one, it would involve some sort of language that I can't say on air. But between Nicholas Petit-Frere coming back in, we've already talked about him. Isaiah Prince, 3 illegal formation penalties, takes a big touchdown off the board to Calvin Ridley, a 51-yard touchdown it would have been on a really nice throw from Will Levis. This offensive line, the struggles predate the current regime. It was an issue even near the end of the Mike Vrabel era. But I mean, I don't want to get into the they don't know football conversation. But how can so many people whose job it is to know football, how come they can't see what we all, well, let me rephrase that. They know how bad it is. They see it. They watch it. But they have an opportunity to fix it. And they just completely whiffed on it. I mean, it is truly embarrassing watching this offensive line. And think about the players who have started at games at that position. Nicholas Petit-Frere, Leroy Watson. Who else am I missing here?
I mean, it doesn't matter.
The problem is none of them are memorable for the right reasons. And none of them would be playing starting reps on another team, most likely. So how did so many people in positions of decision-making power miss what is such an obvious detriment to this team?
Whether it's Leroy Watson, whether it's Jalen Duncan.
Jalen Duncan was the one I was forgetting about.
Petit-Frere, it don't matter. I mean, Logan Bruss. You can go down the line. Isaiah Prince, John Ojoku. It doesn't matter. They have not been able to get this right for whatever reason. And listen, this is a joint effort. It's the last regime and a new regime. Both regimes are the reason why the right side of this offensive line is the way it is.
Hey, Derek,
yes.
Let's hold that thought. Brian Callahan is at the podium. We take you there now.
Yeah.
So injury-wise, obviously Jack Gibbons, he had surgery today. He will go to IR and very, very likely be out for the rest of the season. Heartbroken for him. He was playing at a really high level. I'm disappointed for him, but that was tough to watch, and I'm sure you guys all saw it. So that's unfortunate. Secondly, Tyjae Spears entered the protocol this week, so he'll be in concussion protocol this week. We'll see how he progresses through the week, if he will be available for the game or not. So we'll see. And I'm sure you guys will ask, but Cheeto, we should be. Haven't made a final determination yet, but if it's not this week, we'll definitely open his return to play by next week. So he's coming quickly back to work here, hopefully. So that'll be good. We could use some reinforcements to come help us out there. So expect that here in the next week or two for Cheeto to open his window. Other than that, I'll say there's just a couple things about the game. First is, I thought there was some really good performances by a bunch of guys. I thought our interior of the defensive line was fantastic between Jeff and Sweat. They did a really nice job creating pressure. They stuffed the run game for most of the game. It was really impressive performance by those two. I thought there was some really positive throws that Will had on tape this week that gave us some opportunities, some explosive plays. We had 8 explosives on offense. Those things are all positive. Clearly, whether, it doesn't really matter whether you agree with them or not, 13 penalties is going to lose you a lot of games. So we got to do a better job having some more discipline, being able to overcome some of those things and not put ourselves in position to get called for penalties that were called. And, the negative plays offensively are still things that sort of hold us back at times between the sacks and the penalties. Still far too many for us to play a brand of football that can win against a really good team. And that's we've played a lot of really good teams over the last what feels like 5 weeks or so. Really, really good football teams, really good defenses, and you're not going to beat those teams with 13 penalties and 5 sacks. That's just the way it's going to go. You have to be better than that. So those things we have to improve. I also think too that a lot of our young players right now, I know I talked about things that happen under the surface, things that necessarily aren't, out there for everyone in the world. But I look at guys like Jarvis and JC and Sweat, even Jack Gibbons. I look at the players that, even Baker, Darrell Baker coming in and guys that are playing well, that are growing and developing and putting really good performances quietly, because we're not winning the games, but are quietly putting together good football for us and getting better every week. Those are the things that I like to look at and point to when people ask about the things that are happening underneath the current. That's what I look at, and that's what I see as some of these young players really ascending, and guys that are stepping up in roles. Even Mike Brown, just the way that he stepped in and played at the safety spot for us. There's a lot of guys doing really good things for us right now, and again, not enough to win some of these games that we played in, but guys that I'm excited about their development.
When you look at the performance yesterday from the passing game, from Will in particular, does it make it more impressive that what he was able to do, since you didn't have a run game really to balance it out?
No, I mean that's the number one rush defense in football. So we knew it was going to be hard, and we tried to find some ways to see if we could manufacture it. But the way the fronts are played, the movement, it's a really difficult team to run the football against, and it put us in some tough spots. Our first and second down efficiency was not very good. We found ways to be in some manageable third downs and to convert, about 40% of our third downs against a top 10 third down defense was encouraging. So Will did some good things and didn't have much to lean on outside of just having to face some pressures and make some big throws. And I thought he delivered in a lot of those spots. And there's certainly things he's got to clean up too. It wasn't perfect. There's throws that I think he can throw better. There's decisions that I think could make it cleaner. But yes, there was some really encouraging things and things that are exciting about how he played in that game.
Will spoke to us yesterday. He seemed very confident. He said he did awesome against the blitzes and things like that. Your experience, like how much can a performance like that kind of catapult a guy towards taking more steps that he needs to take?
I mean, half the battle is being confident enough to go do it, and to see Will's growth and put together 2 much improved games. Even look at in general for our team, the turnover margin. I think 3 weeks now we've been even or better, which is a huge departure from what we were early in the season. And Will's a huge part of that. He's taking care of the football. That last interception, he's trying to do a little too much, but at the end of the day, when the game was tight and we had to make some throws, the ball wasn't in harm's way. And there's a confidence that comes with that. And the more confidence you get, so usually the better you end up playing for a lot of reasons. And there's a lot of parts to that too. There's the protection direction part. There's the throws part. There's managing all the things you have to manage against a good defense like that, with the zero pressure looks and the we have usually two plays called on every third down to manage all that stuff. And I thought he did that with a high degree of execution in a lot of those spots during the game. So really encouraging, and he should be confident because there's things that were really good in that game.
Formation penalties, did you do anything different yesterday than you've done previous weeks that you got flagged for?
No, we hadn't been flagged for an illegal formation all season. Yeah. So no, we hadn't. And to me, that's a very subjective call, and whether they think the guy's in the belt line or not. I mean, we teach how to line up correctly. We teach where the alignment's supposed to be. And, obviously they felt like we weren't there, and, that's not for me to debate about. They called it. And so we got to make sure we line up better and our details better, and that we don't put ourselves in position to get those flags. But we haven't had a problem with those all season long.
When you look at that right tackle position,
I'll come back.
Look at that right tackle position, what's the balance between rotating to find the guy that's working well that day?
Yep.
And at some point just saying, this is the best we have, and it may not be good enough, but we got to have the continuity of having the same guy in there all the time.
Yeah, we go back and forth with that, and what is the best thing, and ultimately, it's not nothing's been good enough. So you keep trying to find something to be good enough that's you want to build on and give continuity to, and thus far it hasn't really had that happen yet. And I've not been a part of something that's been so hard to settle down and find some continuity and find some consistency. It's just we just haven't been able to get there.
In terms of some of the throws that Will was making yesterday under pressure and kind of the clutch completions, was some of that new yesterday? In your way of thinking, had you seen all of that before, or were there some things you saw new from Levis yesterday?
I just saw, I think, kind of coming back to what TD asked about the confidence. I just saw a confidence in, probably first and foremost, in the plan. So just the preparation throughout the week, knowing what to do, how to do it, why we had everything, the intent of what we had up, and why we were playing those plays the way we did, and that part was really good. And then to see him in the game, cut it loose and not have a whole lot of fear of failure in those moments was really good to see. And I thought that. The moment that I thought was the best of the whole game for him was we hit Rid for that touchdown. It gets called back, and then now we're 3rd and 11, and Flores decides to come after us, and we got it wired up. He's got the look, he knows what to do, and then he rips the ball under pretty significant duress. It's a zero pressure. We can't get them all. We got them all blocked, but it's not. You got to get the ball out still. And he gets the ball out with pressure and delivers the ball to Bryce. And, compliment to Bryce as well. Bryce hadn't repped that play all week. The only reason he was there is because Rid had just scored a 60-yard touchdown and didn't have any juice for the next play. So Bryce steps in there, knows what to do. And I just think that to me is what's indicative of the growth there, is that there's a confidence and a knowledge of what's being asked, how we're expecting him to do it, and then to go do it. Is always the third step, and he did it in some pretty high leverage spots in the game, and that was encouraging.
From a chicken or the egg standpoint, like how much of that is you guys? Are you scheming those explosive looks up more because you have more confidence in him, or is he seeing them better, hitting them better, and they were always there to be made?
That's probably both. I mean, there's probably some things as we've gotten more comfortable with Will playing, and he's gotten more comfortable, and I've gotten to a better feel for what he likes and the types of throws that he throws well. Trying to put him in that position more often, so that's part of it. The other part of it is, we've found ways to get the ball to him. Whether that's reps in the process, that's familiarity with what we're trying to get done in a game plan. I think it's a little bit of all of those things, and again, I think we still need more. I don't mean to say that we've arrived by any stretch, but there's been some positive developments, and I think we got to keep doing that at a more consistent rate.
You mentioned that you spent extra time with Will last week to prepare for that Vikings defense.
Mm-hmm.
With the results that you got, is that something you might want to continue moving forward, putting in that extra time?
Yeah, I would say that we probably didn't put anything. It wasn't any different than the normal week. It was more on Will to make sure he was really dialed into the very particular things that we were looking for that week. As far as the structure and the work and what we do on a normal day-to-day basis, that didn't really change necessarily. But it was more about, you just have to know, you have to see a whole lot more against that defense than you do in a normal week against a normal defense in the league. They're just because of the multiplicity of the things they do. And it was really kind of on Will to really make sure he was dialed into those things. He did a great job and put a lot of time into it. He always does. That's not really been anything different for him. So it was good to see. It was good that he could digest all of it and then go out and do it on game day.
When you see some of these teams, basically give up, they have either a worse record or the same whatever, and you see your guys continue to fight, like after all the adversity,
Mm-hmm.
like what can you verbalize, like, how you feel about that, how pleased you are with, their ability to continue to fight?
Yeah, I think we have a locker room full of pros, and they understand what it means to play football in the NFL, and they understand that things don't always go your way. And there's a lot of football that gets played over the course of a season, and we haven't found a way to fully break through yet. But I think they see and believe in each other, and that to me is what gives me confidence in them and gives me clarity that we're doing things the right way, that they do things the right way, and that they play for each other. And I've always said that the determination of the culture of your team is how connected they are, and we talk about it all the time in our team meetings. But that's a group of guys that's connected. They love playing football together. They love coming to work every day. They love being around each other. And to me, that's the foundation of what you want your team to look like. And when they go out and play the way they play every week, that's not a surprise to me, because that's how they practice. That's how they meet. I mean, everything we do gives me belief that every week we go out there that we're going to have a chance to win. And those guys believe that too. And that part to me is really encouraging, for where we're at, to see guys play the way they play. That just confirms for me all the things that I think, and that we're made of the right stuff.
What about their buy-in and belief in you? Like, was there a point where you felt convinced, hey man, like, this is my squad right here. They really are with me.
I truth be told, I've felt that way since the beginning. I've not wavered on that. I've not felt any different. And you have to ask them more on what and how they feel. I don't want to speak for them, but I just think that I think we do a good job as a coaching staff, as an organization, of treating them like men, giving them freedom, working together. And I think in turn, they do their part, and they play the way they play because of it. And again, you can ask them how they feel, but I felt from the get-go that this was a group of guys that I was going to be proud to coach and proud to be around, and excited to go to work with every day and go to battle with on Sundays. And it seems like they feel the same way. And again, we don't sit there and tell each other that stuff, but they're made of the right stuff.
When you look at what Bryce Oliver has done in the limited reps that he's had,
I'll get to you, Nick.
does it make you? Are you at a point in the season where you might want to start to take a look at, give some other guys like, say, Cedric Gray or James Williams or even David Martin Robinson opportunities to see what they can do on the field?
I don't know that we're necessarily at a juncture where we would just, unless someone wasn't playing well enough. But we're still going to need our linebackers with Jack. With Jack's injury, we're going to need some guys to step up. Some guys that haven't played as much will probably play a little more, and the roles might get divided up. We'll see what that looks like. But yeah, certainly. I mean, Bryce is a guy that I've been kind of excited about since training camp. The more he's played, the more he shows up, and he's had a couple catches in back-to-back weeks, and a lot of things about Bryce that have been good. Again, another one of those players I think is growing and developing, and I think is a guy that can help us, down the stretch of the season here, the back half, to make some plays, and that's a good thing. The more of those guys we have, the better. Let me go to Nick first, and then I'll come back.
When you look at the big picture of being near the top of the league in injuries right now, how much of that do you feel like is growing pains of kind of getting the system you want in versus kind of the way you guys play, your personnel, and that sort of stuff?
As regards to like the injury factor, is that what you said? I didn't hear that. Oh, penalties. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I thought you said it. I was wait. Okay. The penalty thing is, I think it's partly the demeanor in which we want to play, particularly in the secondary. It's there is a cost of doing business, if you will. When you're playing aggressive and you're playing press and you're trying to make life hard on receivers. Traditionally, those teams get called for those penalties quite a bit, but not enough to necessarily, ruin a game for the most part. They get called, but they don't call it every play and all those things. The other part of it is, though, that we do need to do a better job of, there's a discipline factor that has to improve, and we can't jump off sides. You can't do that. That's not, those are things that we can control. And we haven't done a good enough job controlling the controllables, if you will. And those things have got to get cleaned up. We got to do a better job in that area. Again, holding calls, especially on offense, are usually technical in nature. Every now and again, they just happen, but it's hand placement, it's foot positioning, it's all the things that go into playing the position at a high level. Those things that haven't been clean enough. And then, sometimes you're just going to have some penalties, but we were pretty good there for a while, and then it sort of kind of grown week by week. And those are things that we can't have if we want to be in games and have a chance to win against good teams. And that was one of the messages today, is that we played a lot of really good football teams in the last month. And when you have all those things that pile up negatively, penalties, sacks, things like that, you're putting yourself in position to not win the game. And usually in the NFL, you got to not lose it first before you can actually go win it. And we're putting ourselves in position to lose games. And that's ultimately something that we have to improve. And it starts with me.
That was Tennessee Titans head coach Brian Callahan addressing reporters at St. Thomas Sports Park. Derek and I will react to what Callahan had to say next. Also, Teron Davenport will join us once the news conference is over. 615-737-1025. Derek Mason, Adam Bingen, 1025-1063. The Game. D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Derek Mason and Adam Vingan here with you. We just heard from Tennessee Titans head coach Brian Callahan addressing reporters after the Titans lose to the Minnesota Vikings yesterday, their record falling to 2-8. We will be joined as soon as the news conference is over by Teron Davenport. We'll get his thoughts on what Brian Callahan had to say, as well as the Titans' performance yesterday against the Vikings. But Derek, I noticed you jotting down some notes over there as Brian Callahan was talking. What were some of the biggest takeaways you took from what we heard from Brian Callahan?
I think first, and one of the most important things, because when you're in a season like this, man, you're trying to hold it all together, and you have to come up with different ways and creative ways to keep the guys engaged, and keep the guys on the course. And he mentioned, the guys are still playing, the guys are still working. They're coming into the building ready to work. Guys are about their business. So that's good to hear, that they still believe in the process. They still have faith in Brian Callahan as the head coach, and they're going to go out there and they're going to give 100% each and every game, and as well as practice as well. So that was one thing that sort of interest me, because in times like this, when you're losing in a fashion that they're losing, you start to see some fractions within the locker room, and you start to hear things come out of the locker room, and you start to hear about guys being late to meetings and all this other stuff. You're not hearing any of that coming out of the locker room thus far. It seems like guys are sticking together. Guys are in this battle together, and no one's getting off the ride. So that's good moving forward, because you just believe as a coach, as half of the battle is keeping the guys on the course, keeping the guys engaged. That's half the battle each and every day, especially for a losing team. So that was one of the things that sort of caught my attention.
One thing I have noticed watching these Titans play, and look, I'm like all of you. I devote my time to watching this team play. It's hard, man. It's hard to watch these games. You know what you're going to get as soon as you turn on the television. First half, it's going to be kind of close. They're going to make some plays. It's going to look good. And then over the course of the game, it's going to unravel. I'm there with all of you on how hard it can be to watch this team on a weekly basis. But one thing I certainly have not thought while watching this team play is that they have, to Derek's point, that they have not given up on Brian Callahan. We've talked about the Jaguars, who lose 52-6 to the Lions. You thought losing 52-14 to the Lions was rough. The Jaguars lost 52-6. That from afar looks like a team that's just thrown in the towel. And it's going to ultimately lead to Doug Peterson losing his job. I asked you and Willie if you thought it would happen before the end of the show. Well, we've got about 45 minutes left, so we'll see if it happens. But from afar, that looks like a team that's given up.
Yes.
I look at the Titans. I see a team that, despite its limitations talent-wise, is playing hard every game. And that reflects well on the coach.
Yeah, it does. Again, it's whatever he's doing, whatever that coaching staff is doing during the week, to keep those guys together, to keep those guys, focused on one goal. It's working. Now, listen, ultimately, you got to start getting some wins, and we all understand that. But again, like I said before, half the battle is getting these guys to stay the course when they are in the midst of this storm, in a sense. So that's one. He talked about the interior line. They played extreme. Listen, I've watched Devondre Sweat the whole season, and I paid close attention to him. This is the best, most dominant game he has played thus far. He was unstoppable. He was pushing guys into the quarter. He should have had at least 2 sacks, at least. He had the quarterback and just couldn't get him to the ground. I mean, I know it's hard trying to get Sam Darnold, because they talked about it on the telecast about how hard it is to bring Sam Darnold down. But the big fella in the middle, Sweat, he was pushing people around. He was making plays, tackles behind the line, pressures on a quarterback. He basically single-handedly, wrecked that offensive line at times because of his ability to push the pocket, and Sam Darnold couldn't step up. We need more of that from T'Vondre Sweat. That should be the standard moving forward. When you show us you can play that way, we will not accept anything else, T'Vondre Sweat, because you have the talent. Every game should be like that game. I don't know what made you play that way, but whatever made you play that way, it needs to make you play that way again and again and again, because the only way this team is going to get sacks, this team is going to get better, if guys like T'Vondre Sweat put pressure on the quarterback and then they're able to get to him. Then someone else is able to get to him. Arden Key had a good game. But again, Jeffrey Simmons, he had a good game. That interior line played exceptionally well this past game.
Will from Nashville on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, says Callahan has gone full coach speak. I'm surprised he is tying his wagon to Levis so firmly. Now he owns Levis and his success or failure. I don't know how that's any different than what it was when he was hired here. I mean, we talk about this all the time. It's not just here; it's anywhere in the NFL. The success of the quarterback and the head coach are inextricably linked. If Will Levis becomes a stud, that's going to reflect well on Brian Callahan.
Yes.
If Will Levis is a dud, that will reflect poorly on Brian Callahan. So perhaps Will from Nashville is expecting Brian Callahan to, in public, keep Will Levis at arm's length so that if Will Levis doesn't work out, it doesn't all fall on Callahan. But that's just the nature of the NFL. The head coach and the quarterback, they're sort of one and the same. As one goes, so does the other.
Yeah, you're right. So, I mean, what else do you expect him to say? He hasn't deviated from his sort of talking points. He said this at the beginning, even when Will was struggling. Will's our guy. When he comes back from injury, he is our guy. It hadn't changed. That's what I talk about when I mean, consistency. When I mean, staying in it, staying in the foxhole, even though a lot of things are going on around you, staying put, staying the course. What you decided is what you decided. Now you move forward with it. Now there's going to be some changes here and there, we understand, but his wagon was hitched to Will Levis the minute he took the job. It ain't changing. Will, what he has to do, and we already spoke on this, Adam, is he just needs to be more consistent. He talked about Brian Callahan. He talked about Will Levis gaining confidence with every throw that he makes. That's a good sign. Now we need to see more of it. We need to see him, not be afraid to take those shots down the field when he sees them, or not be afraid to take that tight throw when he sees it, because in this league, a half a step is wide open. Not many times are you going to get a guy running a step and a half in front of somebody. If that was the case, then it's either a blown coverage or the defensive back, I don't know what he was thinking. The foot speed just isn't there. But majority of the times, what's open is a half a step. Will Levis has to understand that, and he has to deliver the ball. So those are some of the things that Brian Callahan, sort of alluded to, which means his wagon is hitched to Will Levis, and it's not going anywhere until the season's done, where they can look at every game with a magnifying glass and start to evaluate them that way.
615-737-1025. We encourage all of your thoughts on the Tennessee Titans on our phone and text lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. We will soon be joined by ESPN NFL Nation reporter Teron Davenport once he's done asking questions of Brian Callahan He will join us and we will get his thoughts on all of this. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025, 1063, The Game.
Hey, this is Derek Mason, and you heard me tell you about Dr. Lodge at Cool Springs MD for some time. If you set out to lose weight, chances are it's not your first time setting a resolution to shed some extra pounds only to face disappointment. But I got some good news. At Cool Springs MD, Dr. Lodge and his team understands the frustration of this cycle, and that is why they offer a different approach to weight loss. Their comprehensive weight loss program is led by Dr. Jeffrey Lodge and addresses the root cause of weight gain with tailored nutrition, exercise, blood test supplements, and more. They will customize their program specific to you and no one else. So connect with Dr. Lodge at CoolSpringsMD.com today to schedule your appointment for a personalized weight loss plan just for you. That's Cool Springs MD, where your weight loss journey becomes a success story.
D Mace, Vingan and Donick, 1025, 1063 the game. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Talking Titans. They lose 23-13 to the Minnesota Vikings at home yesterday. They are back in action on Sunday at Houston. Their next home game, Sunday, December 8th, against the lowly Jacksonville Jaguars. We did get an interesting text on our phone line or on our text line, I should say, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com from JD. Derek JD says, what people need to realize is that Joe Burrow was Joe Burrow before he got to Cincinnati. Brian Callahan worked and fine-tuned him. Will Levis is a lot deeper of a dive for Callahan. It will take time to figure out the end result. That's good, but what have we talked about? Quarterbacks don't have a lot of time to figure these things out. But I understand what JD is saying, and I think it's a good point.
Yeah, it is. You're dealing with, a quarterback in Joe Burrow that had it, that was that dude before he even got to Cincinnati. And when he got to Cincinnati, he showed very quickly that he was that guy. There was no sort of like, oh, is he really this good or is he not? No. It was shown very quickly that he was that good and he was going to continue to be that good. And nothing has sort of swayed anyone to think otherwise. Will Levis, he didn't come in with that type of with those type of credentials or with that type of sort of assessment, or scout when they scouted him. He didn't come in as that surefire, can't miss type of guy. And I think Joe Burrow was that guy. But, in all of that, you still have to work with what you have. You have to try to, do things that will allow your quarterback to grow in your system. You want to see some progress in him. Is he maturing as a quarterback? And is he doing the things that you are asking him to do? And can he do it at a high level? Jury is still out on Will Levis. He's been so up and down that, you can't say, regardless if he plays another good game or not, he is the guy. He needs to be consistent moving forward. He needs to be a positive piece on a bad team, because that's what they are, a bad team. And if he can be a positive piece on a bad team, this bad team will start to turn around. Again, I'm not saying that they're going to win every game from here on out, but you will start to see things a little bit different if Will Levis starts to make that turn. And it seems like early on, since he's come back from the injury, it seems like he's headed back on track, or he's headed on track. But I need to see more. And I'm sure Brian Callahan needs to see more as well.
Would it be weird to say that perhaps the injury was a blessing in disguise for Will Levis because it forced him out of the game? Because as we've discussed, and as Brian Callahan has said, when Will Levis is healthy, he's our starting quarterback. So even if he continued to struggle and he did not suffer that injury against the Miami Dolphins, he would have been in the lineup. But he sat out for a number of weeks, and perhaps it gave Brian Callahan the cover to take Will Levis out and have him do the things that we've talked about he probably needed to do, take a step back, take a deep breath, and watch and get that pressure off. So I'm wondering if, who knows what Will Levis will ultimately become. But I'm wondering if there's a correlation between his performance these past 2 weeks and the fact that he did have to come out of the lineup, albeit for an injury reason.
I do firmly believe that had he played in those 3 games, the Colts, the Bills, and the Lions, not necessarily the Patriots, because the Patriots is a bad team, but those 3 teams, I think that in 2 of those 3 games, I think he would have lost his confidence completely. I think he would have lost his confidence completely against the Bills, and I think he would have lost his confidence completely against the Lions. It was good that he was able to sit back and watch because of the injury. He didn't have to endure what the team or what Mason Rudolph had to endure. So he was able to see it from a different point of view. And he knew, I think a part of it too was the head coach saying, he's still our guy. He's still the guy. So now while I'm injured or bench, or whatever you want to call it, I am not in fear of my job. So I'm not trying to rush back. I'm not trying to, and I'm not anxious. I'm just going to wait until I'm fully healthy and I get to watch things. And so when I get back on the field, I know exactly what I'm doing. I know exactly what I'm looking at. Had he not been injured, I'm not sure if Will Levis's confidence would have held up. I'm just being honest, because with him or without him, I don't think they would have beat the Bills. I don't think they would have beat the Lions. And I think it would have just compounded on his already at that point frustrating season. I think it would have compounded moving forward. So it was good for him at least to sit back, watch, and then come in with sort of a freshness about himself and a new look on how he's viewing the game.
We touched on the offensive line. You were about to get into something when Brian Callahan started addressing reporters earlier. We know the offensive line is bad, but this right tackle situation, I mean, where did it all go wrong? I mean, this is a complicated question, but where did it all go wrong for the Titans and the offensive line? I mean, if you had to trace it back to something, Derek, like this is the point where it all went to pot for the Titans offensive line. Is there a specific moment in time that stands out to you?
You got time? I can go all the way back now.
I mean, we've got a little time left.
I can start it at its conception. Okay. When you decided, and I know they end up being a better offensive line, not necessarily a better offensive line, but they continue to be a good offensive line. But the day you decided not to sign Jack Conklin back, that set you back. Because then now you just kept looking for that long-term, not a short-term fix. I'm talking long-term fix at right tackle. Ever since Jack Conklin, you've been looking for that long-term fix, and you have not been able to find it. I think that's when things started to erode with the Tennessee Titans offensive line. And then it goes to the failed draft picks that you had in the first round with your tackles and your guard. That's when you end up with a situation that you're in now, when you don't bring in no true competition. You had all off season to scour the free agency market and find you some right tackles. You had all off season, and you came back with these guys: Ojukwu, PT, Nicholas Petit,
Jalen
Duncan. These are the guys that you presented to us. Excuse me, that you presented to us at the right tackle position. And the one guy that you said it was his position, he was hurt. And then when he comes back, he doesn't have to compete. Why is it that a guy that hasn't proven that he's good shouldn't have to compete for a starting job? Again, why is it that someone that has shown he hasn't quite gotten it yet, why doesn't he have to compete? Like seriously, legitimately compete for a job? All those guys that were on that right side, those were no competition. There was no competition at all. I could have probably put Brad Hopkins out there, who's 50-something years old, and he's lost weight. He looks like a basketball player right now. I could have put him out there, and he would have gave more competition than the guys that were in front of Nicholas. So you had no competition at the right tackle position, but yet and still, you have Nicholas Petit out there as if he's just this all-world guy. I could see if he was an all-pro, pro bowler, or a guy that just showed he can play the position. I can understand it from that standpoint. Even with that, I'm still like, put some competition so he can get better. You didn't do that. The organization failed across the board, from the Jack Conklin to the Nicholas Petit Frere right now. They failed this offensive line. They failed this organization. This was the one position over the years that they got right. What the one position beside the running back position, because we can go back and we can discuss the running back position and how they've gotten that right over and over and over again. But the offensive line, the tackles, that was one thing that I could say, man, you know what? If they don't get nothing else right, the Tennessee Titans will get the tackle positions right. Because once you look throughout their history, you go down the line, they had good left tackles or right tackles, or great left tackles or right tackles. This has been the only time within the last 3 years that they haven't had that spot solidified. And that's inexcusable. It truly is. You failed this fan base and you failed the organization by not going out and truly addressing that spot. Like, truly. Don't give me, oh, Nicholas was there and he was young and he showed some stuff early. The kid can't play. And he can't play because he doesn't have it in him. If he had it in him, you would see better play. But I don't think he cares. I really don't think he cares at this point. Don't put him back in. He shouldn't be back on the field. Find somebody else. Because what he's giving you is nothing. Zero, zilch, nada. He's giving you nothing. When he walks out, there's a joke. Those linemen on the other side are looking, they're just like, please put him back out here. Please, I beg of you. Throw Nicholas back out there so we can work him some more. And don't tell me, just leave the other guy out there. At least just leave the other guy. Leave Leroy Watson out there or somebody else. Do not put Nicholas back in the game.
They didn't really have much of a choice.
Yeah, you do have a choice. Don't put him in. That's the choice. Or you can go get somebody off the practice squad.
They did. Isaiah Prince. And how many illegal
I would leave Isaiah Prince in there because I know who Nicholas is. I know who he is. And he's not a player at this point. I've seen enough of him. He doesn't have it in him. He doesn't. He's a big guy. He's probably athletic. But if you don't have it in you, if you don't have that, he doesn't have dog in him. Doesn't whatsoever. Not on the football field, at least. He doesn't have it in him. So if he doesn't have it in him, Rand, Brian, don't put him back in the game. Bill Callahan, don't put him back in the game. Because you're going to get somebody else hurt if you put him back. Because he don't care right now. He doesn't care. A guy that went through training camp, didn't play, but stepped right back into his starting position after he had played horrible. Why should he care? Y'all didn't do anything about it. And y'all asking him to get better. What did y'all do to make him get better? Tell me that, Titans. What did y'all do to force him to get better? I'm going to answer that for you. You did nothing whatsoever. And that's the disappointing part. That I cannot defend Rand on that. That one I cannot defend Rand on. And I will not try to. After what I've seen the last couple of weeks, I will not try to do that.
615-737-1025. I'm curious for everybody's take on the question I asked Derek. If you had to trace the Titans' offensive line issues to one specific point, where would it be? Derek said the Titans' decision not to retain Jack Conklin, and it all unraveled from there. But what about all of you? 615-737-1025. We'll get to that and wrap up the show next. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063, The Game.
It's never too early to start thinking about the big game. And now that it's November, Zen Sports, the new sports book in Tennessee, has launched a brand new sweepstakes for all its Tennessee customers, the Big Game Sweepstakes, where you could win a grand prize of 2 tickets to Super Bowl 59 in New Orleans or $10,000 cash. And what's more is Zen Sports will also award 50 additional prizes, which includes 2 tickets to any Tennessee sporting event or $100 cash. Want in on the action? You can earn multiple entries every day just by betting on the Zen Sports app. For every bet you place, you will earn 1 entry, and for every dollar you bet, earn an additional entry. Like parlays, earn double the entries on every parlay place. So what are you waiting for? When you sign up for Zen Sports, you'll automatically earn up to $100, no danger first wager. If your first bet loses, you'll be reimbursed for the amount of your bet up to $100. Start betting with Zen Sports and download their app today. That's Zen Sports, where betting just got better. And remember, gambling problems, call 1-800-889-9789. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 years or older to bet here in Tennessee.
D. Mace, Finnegan, and Donick, 1025, 1063 The Game. Stoneman and Company coming up next. Jared, of course, will have a full breakdown of the Titans' loss to the Minnesota Vikings.
Yes.
But before we get to Jared, the question I asked all of you, we just heard what Derek had to say, and I'm curious for all of your opinions on the matter at 615-737-1025. What was the point where it all went wrong on the offensive line for the Tennessee Titans? Because this has been a problem for many, many years. It predates the current regime. We talked a lot about the offensive line during the Mike Vrabel era as well. But clearly, as Derek said, Ran Carthon, Chad Brinker, Brian Callahan, Bill Callahan, what they thought this offensive line could be, specifically at right tackle, they clearly misread the situation. Because think of all of the players who have rotated through that spot, who ideally would probably never play meaningful snaps in the NFL. They've been forced into it. Nicholas Petit-Frere started the season at right tackle. He lost his job. He comes back in. We heard what Jarek just had to say. I probably couldn't have said it. Well, I know I couldn't have said it any better myself. But where did it all go wrong on the offensive line? Jordan in Nashville on their text line said the point of failure was not having a replacement for Taylor Lewan to anchor the left side of the line and be able to build from there.
I mean, they tried and they whiffed with Isaiah Wilson. And they whiffed with other players.
Andre Dillard,
bringing him in free agency.
Just mentioning a lot of these names just gives me the shivers, and not the good kind of shivers, like Andre Dillard. Ooh, like that's
just like you're scared of him,
right?
Like,
It's like the boogeyman. I don't want to hear about Andre Dillard. I think he's like on a practice.
Don't say his
squad.
name 3 times.
Right. I think he's on a practice squad somewhere. Good for him. That was a dark time for the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah, they just whoever is in charge of scouting this offensive line, or whoever has been in charge of scouting in regards to the offensive line, they got to do a better job. They just have to, because this team is not going anywhere until they build up that offensive line. I would take a page out of the Detroit Lions or the Indianapolis Colts playbook. I would use draft picks on offensive linemen. I would, because until you build up this offensive lineman with some young talent, I'm not just talking about going in and trying to piece it together with free agency. No, I'm talking about building it with young talent. That's the only way you're going to do it. That's the only way you're going to get back to having the offensive lines that we are used to having here in Nashville. You've gotten far away from it. And Amy, she should know, because that's, again, when her dad owned this team, the one thing they had was an offensive line. And I'm not saying he was directly responsible for it, but when he was running his team, they had an offensive line. When Floyd Reese was a GM, they had an offensive line. Okay. They found a way each and every year to make sure, outside of any other position, that the offensive line, because they understood, if you're going to win in this league consistently, you gotta have an offensive line. I don't care if you got the best receiver in the game. I don't care if you got the best quarterback in the game. I don't care if you got them both at the same time, i.e. the Cincinnati Bengals. Got a top 3 quarterback and a top 3 wide receiver. Matter of fact, they got a top 3 quarterback and 2 top 10 wide receivers. And look where they're at. Why? Because of their offensive line. So don't bring in no more skilled players until you get this offensive line right, because it's not going to matter. It's not. You went out and got Calvin Ridley, it didn't matter. You went out and got Pollard, it didn't matter. And I think those 2 guys are hell of a players. It doesn't matter when you don't have an offensive line. So y'all need to find a way. That should be priority number 1. Get you an offensive line, then we could start discussing the other stuff.
One texter says, I think it all started with Taylor Lewan and his production dipping. When he got busted for using PEDs, that's when everything started changing. The Titans thought they would get a lot more out of him for a lot longer period of time, but they never had a backup plan.
He broke down too quickly. That's what it was. I don't think he predicted that, the fall would be sort of that quick. We all know it's coming. We all know that, listen, the longer you play this game, the more and more you're going to start to slowly decline in your play. Not because you're not working hard or anything else. It's just what happens. The older you get, your play started to diminish a little bit. I don't think, nor do I believe Taylor Lewan thought that it would diminish that quickly, that his injuries would mount up that quickly. And maybe the caller's right. They didn't have a contingency plan. Well, they thought they had one in Isaiah Wilson, and it didn't work. And then after that, they just kept trying to replace it with marginal guys that hadn't proven themselves in this league. And that's why they're in the position that they're in. Yes, they have the left tackle situated now, but what about the left guard? The center is in flux. Why? Because Cushenberry isn't playing. And when he comes back off his injury, we don't know how he's going to look. The right guard is okay. And then the right tackle is awful. So you still have a long way to go to get this team to being a competitive team, a team that wins those close games as opposed to losing those close games.
So it appears that my wager will not pay out.
You still got a couple minutes.
I still do have a couple of minutes. So what I need the Jaguars to do is to put out a news release in the next 3 minutes saying that they have fired Doug Peterson. For those who missed it at the beginning of the show, I wagered with Derek and Willie, what are the chances that the Jaguars fire Doug Peterson during our program, considering the Jaguars are, at least you're not the Jaguars, Titans fans. That it could be worse.
Well, you're damn near close.
Pretty close.
Yeah, but at least you haven't paid $50+ million to your quarterback.
That's fair.
Yeah, that's the saving grace right there.
Yes, and that is not insignificant. So it appears I'm going to lose out on this wager. By the way, I wagered absolutely nothing. So I
wagered friendship.
I wagered friendship. That didn't happen. We did get one major piece of quarterback news today. The New York Giants benching Daniel Jones. And not only benching him, he's now quarterback 3. He's not even quarterback 2.
Tommy DeVito.
Now that's who needs to be fired.
Tommy DeVito?
No. The GM and the head coach, all of them need to be fired.
And Joe Shane.
Because sometimes having a peek behind the curtains isn't good for you.
And the Giants were on the offseason version of Hard Knocks.
Exactly. And we got to peek behind the curtain and what the decision was by the Giants to either sign their all-world running back or sign their mediocre quarterback who had a good stretch of games. They decided to go with the mediocre quarterback who fooled them. And now they're paying for it. And Saquon Barkley is looking damn good in Philadelphia.
He sure is.
Yeah, all y'all need to go.
I imagine that's probably going to happen at the end of the season. I can't imagine the Giants' brain trust is going to survive this. Another highly paid quarterback who is now benched. So we've talked about this a lot with Will Levis. He has a lot of warts in his game. Mm-hmm. And who knows if he'll be a good starting quarterback, but you haven't invested in him at all in terms of actual dollars.
And that's why I want him to play the whole season. I want him to finish this season out. I pray that he doesn't get injured. I pray that his offensive line holds up, at least on the right side, so we can get a true assessment of who Will Levis is as a quarterback. Again, the last 2 games, they've been good. Okay. But being good isn't good enough in this sport at that position. You need to be a guy that can elevate people. And right now, Will Levis isn't elevating people, but he has played better the last 2 games. I just want that trend to continue with him.
That'll do it for us today. We'll have a full house tomorrow. Willie Donick will be back in studio after being away with the Predators for the past week and a half. Happy to have him back. We'll have Tim Hassel back on. We'll have Clark Lee on. Vanderbilt had the week off, but they are back in action this week, so we'll chat with Clark Lee. And I'm sure we'll keep talking about how terrible this offensive line is, because that's just what we do around here. But Stillman and Company coming up next. 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Be love on your people. Have a wonderful and blessed Monday. Peace.